They've done DNA studies that shows that DNA, or the Homo sapiens sapien, originated in Africa and migrated throughout the world. This is what they've done. There is a recent theory, and it's only a theory. I have not found compelling evidence. That's what I'm going to ask you. That people who have Rh negative blood are seeded from another species because they are the only ones who kill their own in utero. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, okay, I've read that, and I am a bit perturbed that our species is so willing to kill each other. Because if you look in the animal kingdom, that doesn't go on. There's only rare cases where that happens. And I don't know of any other species of extraterrestrials that have come here. The only evidence I have is what is in the cuneiform tablets, in the cylinder seals, and in the translations of the stories. They talk about reptilians, they talk about all kinds. My daughter, who's a hypnotherapist in Santa Fe, New Mexico, is into all this stuff. She talks about the Pleiadians and all. I said, well, prove it to me. They have not yet been able to prove it. And that DNA may be a path to that, but so far I have no evidence of that.
Thank you so much. Your theory about the interior of the Great Pyramid being a water pump, hydraulic pump, with the washboard theory in the amphitheaters of Greece, this is fantastic. And the idea is that these Anunnaki created these structures for mining gold. Now, how does all of this theory that Sitchin puts forth, that these structures and so forth were created by Anunnaki from whose home was off of the earth, size up with the other large theory, which again in mainstream is not accepted, that like Graham Hancock talks about in Fingerprints of the Gods, the 26,000-year cycle of tremendous global distortion through magnetic field and the remnants of civilizations that were already here, not Anunnaki from space, making these structures and teaching. How does that stack up?
Well, I have no quarrel with everybody who wants to put forward another theory. I believe what happened was that there was a great flood 11,500 years ago, and their gold mines were flooded, no longer useful, so that they weren't extracting gold in the old-fashioned way. And since they got the mines kaput, they went to the washboard gold mining process late in the cycle because it was easier. Actually, you're collecting pure gold rather than trying to separate it from all the stuff that's around it. Now, as far as the other theories go, I stand on the Sitchin theory. I would think it's always possible for other people to say what they want to say, but I don't think it's really proper for them to bash other theories. And I think the problem with Hancock is that he's bashing Sitchin. And I don't think that's proper. I mean, if you want to propagate your own theory, fine. But you don't go around trashing what is a scholar, a guy of genius, who's given us the Earth Chronicles. I don't know if any of you read them. They're fantastic. He's able to correlate the Bible, stories of all the wars and all the kings, with the stories that's in the cuneiform tablets. It supports it. That's real scholarship, and I really take a negative view. Yes?
One of the primary detractions from Sitchin is that his interpretations of among linguists are extremely they're basically he's assuming too much, and that there's these other linguists that say. And so I'm wondering, as you're saying, you're kind of now the defender of Sitchin's work, self-appointed. Do you have like a guide towards where it is that they're saying, okay, well, these are the things that the
I'll give you an example. Hancock says it wasn't the landing platform. Sitchin called it the landing platform. Well, they gave us the story of Gilgamesh. And in Gilgamesh, there is the landing platform. This is where the rockets take off. I mean, there's verifications of what is there. I think that the Bible was written 1,000 years after the cuneiform tablets. And much of the information I found, and so did Sitchin, that came from the cuneiform tablets ends up in the Bible. There's a little different twist. For instance, you look at Genesis 6:4 in the Bible. It says the Nephilim were upon the earth in those days. They were the sons of gods, and they coveted the daughters of man, and had sex with them and created the giants of old, the men of renown. Well, A, who were the gods? B, who were the sons of the gods? And
Maybe those remnants of
who were the Nephilim? Now, the Nephilim is a word that Hancock takes an umbrage to. I think it's an absolute verification of the translations that Sitchin did of the Anunnaki, because the Sumerians said that was their name. And by the way, in the story of Gilgamesh, they coexisted in the town of Uruk, where this king, who's two-thirds Anunnaki, his mother was a queen, purebred Anunnaki, and his father was human. So he was two-thirds Anunnaki, and he wanted to be immortal like his mother. That's what the whole story's about. And I don't think they would have given us this story if they weren't trying to tell us something. Next question.
I'm excited about the Klarfeld washboard gold mining theory.
Thank you.
Do you think that when Nibiru comes back around and it causes the flooding, that those gold minings will be working again?
Well, it's being done now. In fact, if you go to Sochi, Russia, that's where the water goes into the Black Sea. The old women are still putting sheepskins in the water and collecting gold. I mean, I've built a device. You go to my webpage, you see it's available, where I've got a sled with a sheepskin in it, and you can go put it in a placer stream and collect your own gold, because it's been done before. There's no reason why we can't do it on a smaller scale if you want to. Just go to my webpage, you'll see it.
Is there a fossil? I've seen pictures on the internet. Is there fossil evidence of Anunnaki?
Oh, yeah. It's in
I
here.
mean, I see it, but I don't know if it's real.
Oh, fossil. Well, maybe. Maybe a hybrid. A tomb was found in Planenke of a king buried underneath one of the pyramids. And they think he was part Anunnaki because he was taller than the rest of them.
Where is this from? Where?
In Planenke.
Palenque.
Yeah, Pascal. Pascal is the, and there's a sarcophagus with this beautiful carving of a guy who looks like he's driving a rocket ship. I mean, there is evidence, but fossil-wise, the thing you want to look at is that we have skeletal remains of Homo erectus. And if evolution was true and we evolved from Homo erectus, there should be skeletal remains between Homo sapiens and Homo erectus, and there are. That's the missing link. We appear out of nowhere 200,000 years ago in Southeast Africa as a new species. Did we evolve directly? No, we were modified. That's what the story is. Yes?
What is the correlation with the Nibiru coming every 3,600 years, correlation to our chronology and history?
Yeah. Okay. If you go backwards, say the Star of Bethlehem was a passing. Subtract 3,600 years and subtract 3,600 years, you get to the flood perfectly. Bingo. They know that in the story of Gilgamesh that they knew the flood was coming. It was a tsunami. The ice shelf in Antarctica had been loosened, and the pull of Nibiru forced it into the South Ocean, causing a 1,000-foot high tsunami, which progressed northward and wiped everything out. Now you want to ask yourself another question. In the Bible, that's the story of Noah, by the way. After the flood, when they land, a few people and a couple of animals, how'd they survive? The place is covered with mud. There's no trees, there's no food, there's no animals, everything's wiped out. In the story, the Anunnaki god, they had a deity called the creator of all. And the message that came from the creator of all is that their destiny, the Anunnaki's destiny, was to come to planet Earth to create humans. And humans' destiny was to survive and take care of the planet. Now, they heard that message that, well, okay, we've got to help them survive. So they brought down from the mothership trees, food, animals, seeds, domesticated wheat. All of these things are provable. But the question is, how'd they get all those animals on the boat? In the story of Gilgamesh, they talk about collecting DNA of every species, 2 by 2, putting it in a golden box, which survived on the ark. The ark, by the way, was a submersible, because in order for the tsunami to survive, it couldn't be on top, it had to be a submersible.
Where was her head over here? Okay.
Yeah, just a comment and then a question. I happen to know, and I could give you the references, that to this day they use the fleece of sheep to collect gold in Afghanistan. There's a river, it's called the River of Gold. Yeah, I can get that
Thank you for
information
that.
to you.
I
Okay.
didn't know that.
And my question is, it's a question about the timeline. And it seems to me, I mean, I could be wrong, but it seems to me that the Sitchin theory about how the asteroid belt was formed and how the moon was, there was an impact with Tiamat, as I understand it. It seems to me you can separate that from the rest of the story from Sumeria. But my question is about just the part about the impact, okay? The timeline of that, because in the book Splat, for instance, a large number of scientists actually looked at rocks from the moon, and they determined that the moon really was, that the moon and the Earth were originally part of the same body. But they dated that event of the impact back at almost 4 billion years ago, not 250,000.
Yeah, no.
So my question is timeline.
Okay, the timeline, it's a very good question. Thank you for the Afghanistan story. I'll use that. They came here 400,000 years ago, they being the Anunnaki. The planet Earth is 4.5 billion years old. And how they got the information of the creation, I don't know. But they were willing to tell us that. And that happened billions of years ago. So the timeline is that the creation of the new form, and they talk about Uranus being on its side, that was part of the gravitational effect. This story needs to be substantiated by the scientific community. Eventually it will be. Sitchin was able to take a Numa Elish, those 7 tablets of creation that the Sumerians wrote, or that the Anunnaki wrote for them, to give the information, to understand it. He deciphered it and caused this diagram, which appears in my first book called Adam the Missing Link, by the way.
What did they need the gold for?
Okay, the story, that's a good question. I asked Sitchin that. I said, we've been here 200,000 years. What did they do with all that gold? I said, were they ingesting it? He said, what are you talking about? I said, there's a monatomic gold that people are taking today to try to cure their DNA and live forever. He said, Marshall, the record speaks for itself. You wouldn't go outside the box. I'm the kind of guy that wants to know. In fact, I asked him, was the mutiny in the gold mines a spin story? Did they really spin us so that they could create us? We don't know. They're the ones that wrote the story. And my observation of history is the victors always tell you how it went. So, and Sitchin again said, Marshall, the record speaks for itself. He wouldn't go outside the box.
So what was it really for?
What was what?
The gold.
Oh, the gold was to, they had atomic wars on Nibiru. They'd done all kinds of terrible things, and they blew a hole in their atmosphere, like the ozone leak. And if you think of a spaceship that has a hole in it, you got a problem. Well, their planet had a problem, and the only way they figured out to solve the problem was to flake gold into the ozone hole to seal it, to save their atmosphere, to save their planet. So it was very critical. They got the gold. They didn't have any gold. Gold's rare in the universe. Not every place. Our planet happens to have it. So they figured that out. They came here for the gold, to seal the atmosphere and save their planet. But I said to Sitchin, 200,000 years of mining gold, you could seal up 100 atmospheres.
So how did they know the gold was here in the first place?
Somehow they were able to do a survey of all the planets in our solar system. They discovered the minerals on our planet. Gold was one of them. I think. I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I don't know everything.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Now, when you're saying that they took out the nucleus of the DNA and inserted theirs to create us. Now, in Hebrew, the word Adam for first man means red clay. And they're saying that they made the first man out of mixed it in red clay pot?
Is
that just a coincidence?
Earthen pot. That was what the cylinder seal shows.
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
speculation.
the exact translation in Hebrew is an earthen red clay.
Yeah.
Right. Adam. That's correct. So I'm just wondering, since we use
They have a
Adam as
description of
first
Adam, by the way. Since Adam who came from Homo erectus in South Africa, he was dark skinned. His skin was the color of blood ruby. So he wasn't a Caucasian. Couldn't have been.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your attention.
My question is, back to the amphitheater in Greece. It's porous from a lot of erosion. If it had been used for sluicing, I would think that there would be gold residue left in the pore.
I went there looking for it, yeah.
Extracted.
I didn't find any. I think it's, I didn't have the proper tools in the first place. And it's been 2,000 years. A lot happens in 2,000 years. And I want to prove my theory, and that's one way I'm trying to prove it, but I have to go around the world and try to find some evidence of that.
Yeah, quick question. I'm just wondering about the technology that they're using. Seems pretty primitive in some ways and pretty advanced in other ways, like the genetic engineering, big steps. We can't do that. But they're using rocket technology. That's really primitive for them. And it takes a long time to travel rocket-wise between planets.
Well, we don't know. There's no evidence.
Well, there's platforms that they took off from.
That's what you're saying. If they took off from a platform, did they use rockets?
They had
propulsion?
some kind of a vehicle. They called them celestial chariots. Now, a celestial chariot is a description of something that flies. How it flew, what was the propulsion system. There were some references, by the way, that they had a station on Mars. When Mars had water and an atmosphere, they had a substation there where they would transport the gold to Mars and then ship it from Mars to Nibiru. And then when Nibiru came through, it wiped out the atmosphere from Mars, and they quit doing that. There should be some evidence we should find on Mars. But that the refueling was water. And if a propulsion system based on water, use your imagination. I don't.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, an American treasure, Marshall Klarfeld. Thank you very much.